Thank you all for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. We're so excited.
Of course.
Teri, we have a ton of people who signed up for your session today. I see a bunch of people joining, so we're so excited.
Oh, good. Hey, guys. Welcome.
Hey. We see some friends on here, some Habitat friends. I see Julie, who's going to be joining us later. Hey.
Hey, Julie, how are you? I hope you're doing well.
I know y'all are friends. It's so awesome.
Yes.
So awesome.
Our world with all the people who teach finances online is like so small, but it's so awesome because we can all support each other. So I
It
love
seems
it.
like such a tight-knit community, which is so important because you all though have like your very specific niche. You know,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Oh, hey, I'm so happy that you're here. Thanks, Julie, for coming.
so sweet. Yeah, so drop us some notes in the chat if you're just joining. Welcome. Thanks for your patience as we got started just a minute or two late. Today we are incredibly excited for this session, and I cannot wait to introduce you to our friend Teri. Teri, welcome. We're so excited to have you.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me. I'm just glad to be here. This is going to be fun.
You know, I had the opportunity, I'll share with our attendees, to meet Teri a couple weeks back and was just so amazed by her presence, by her enthusiasm, her knowledge. And we knew that we had to have her for this event. So Teri, we're so excited to welcome you as part of our Financial Literacy Week celebration at Dallas Habitat. We've been celebrating all week. We'll really be celebrating all month, as we know that you are as well.
Yes.
And you know, every day this week we have a theme. And so today's theme is investing like a pro. And we're just so excited to dig into this topic because I think, you know, really when it comes to investment in general, but specifically about stock trading, there is just so much to unpack as a newbie. It can be very intimidating. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of terminology and jargon and language that we have to learn. And so we're just really excited to welcome you here today and go over kind of the basics of if we're thinking about actively trading stock, what we might need to know.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Before we get started, I have to give you a formal introduction for our guests and give you some serious props and shout outs because I need everyone to know Teri is big time, y'all. We have an awesome guest with us here today. Teri is best known for making $1,000 in a day, which is pretty fabulous. I'd love to make $1,000 in a day. Teri, teach us your ways. Teri empowers thousands of people from across the world, teaching them to supplement their income through trading so that they can design and enjoy the ultimate freedom lifestyle. She is also the founder of Trade and Travel, and we will drop her links and handles, social media handles in the chat so y'all can connect with Teri. And I have to also call it the fact she was 2018 Entrepreneur of the Year, named by the National Black MBA Association. Welcome, Teri.
Hello, hello. It's an honor.
We're so excited to have you. And let's kick us off without further ado. Before we get, too in the weeds and too started, I really just want to talk a little bit about the basics. Can we just lay a foundational knowledge and understand what are stocks and how do people in general make money from trading stock?
Sure. So I think one important thing to talk about is the difference between long-term investing and short-term investing. First, let's talk about that. Then we can do the basics of what is stocks. So long-term investing is if you are buying a stock and then holding it until retirement. So that's many people are doing that through their 401k and just longer term IRAs, just all different ways to invest for the long run. Short-term active investing is where we are investing in stocks, same stocks, but we're investing for the short term. So we're getting in and out of stocks on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis for income. So I have to make that preface because I'm an active investor. So the things that I say today are going to be from that perspective. How are we making money for income, to pay our bills, to travel, to pay down student loans and debt? How do we use stocks for that? So to your question, Blaine, so when you think about just a stock, what is it? When a company wants to raise money, they're able to sell a piece of their company to the public in order to raise that money. So if we think about, like, I like thinking about Uber because everybody knows Uber. But when Uber was thinking about expanding, they said, you know what? We're thinking about growing internationally. We're thinking about doing Uber Eats and like all these different things. We need to raise money. Let's just offer a little piece of our company to the public to get that extra capital. So that's what they did. They went to an investment bank, structured a deal, and were able to offer shares of their company for a certain price. Then the public was able to start buying those shares. That's what a stock is. Just that small piece of the company that you're buying, and that's supporting the company. Now, here's the thing. Once those shares go public, now people who own the shares can sell them to other people, and they can sell them at whatever price they want. So that's when the stock market comes into play, because it's literally just a market of people buying and selling the shares that they own. Does that make sense? I hope that made that simple.
So think about it this way, y'all. When you buy, like Teri said, when you buy a stock in Apple, every time that you buy that iPhone that comes out, you're making a little bit on that, right? Because you own a little fraction of Apple and all of their earnings as well. And so, Teri, can we talk a little bit about where stock is traded exactly?
Yes. So the companies, like, the actual paperwork is sitting in investment banks on Wall Street, but there's online brokers now that we can access to be able to trade those companies. So many of you guys have heard about Robinhood and E-Trade and interactive brokers, or Charles Schwab. I use one called TradeStation, but really it's an online brokerage account where they allow you to buy and sell stock. And that's the first step of, if you're starting out as a trader, like, that's the first step. You got to open up that kind of brokerage account. It's super easy. You do the paperwork online. Like I said, I use TradeStation, so I know them best. But if you were opening a TradeStation account, they would give you paperwork just like a bank account, and then you would select. You can select what type of thing you're trading, whether that's equities, which is stocks, that's companies, or you could trade futures, which is like commodities, and that's a little bit more in detail, but you'd really just open it just like a bank account, but it'd be for stock investing.
That's an awesome, awesome explanation, Teri. And just one other kind of basic foundational knowledge, because I feel like for a lot of newbies, we've heard these terms before, right? Like the Dow Jones and the S&P 500. Can we talk a little bit about what these are and what you might need to know about that as a first-time trader?
Yes. So those are called indexes. An index is just a group of companies. So it's a group of some of the largest companies, and it shows like how the stock market overall is doing because it's just following that group of companies. So when we talk about the Dow Jones, that's the top 30 companies. And actually, if you guys go on Instagram to Teri Ijeoma, my post yesterday literally tells you all the stocks that are in each one of these indexes. So check it out. It's just my name, Teri Ijeoma, on Instagram. But the Dow Jones is the top 30 companies. The S&P 500 is the top 500 companies in the US. And it vacillates. So sometimes companies will leave and then others will be added to the S&P. So but the names are like the top ones. If you can think of course, like Apple's in there and Goldman Sachs, all the big ones are in there. And then one other index is the NASDAQ, and it covers most of the technology companies. So if you've loved Uber, like I said, Uber, they came out on the NASDAQ. Did Airbnb come out on the NASDAQ? No, most of the technology firms like Amazon, they're usually followed in the NASDAQ as well if it's technology. So those are the big indexes that most people follow.
So you might choose an index based on your philosophy, on your investing philosophy, or companies that you like or believe in.
Yes, I would definitely say companies that you like. And it also might be, if you're thinking, you know what, I want something a little bit more stable, I just want to follow the overall market, then maybe you choose the Dow, because the Dow is oftentimes seen as an indicator of the whole market. Or maybe you say, you know what, I think I want to be a little bit more risky, a little bit more return. Then maybe you follow the NASDAQ because that has the technology in it. So it's just whatever is your preference.
Sure. And a lot of that might even depend on the phase of life that we're in, right? So if we're younger, we might have a higher appetite, a bigger appetite, right, for risk. But if we're older, we might be a little bit more conservative and choose to follow the market on the whole.
Yes, definitely true. I know a lot of millennials, we grew up with technology, so that's the stuff we like.
Yeah.
So we're very much looking at the Facebook, they call it the FANG stocks, the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and Apple's in there too. So many times we're looking at those, and those are often in the NASDAQ.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, before we move on to get kind of more in detail on some of the strategy behind this, I would love to just give you an opportunity to share with our attendees about your personal story, Teri, because I know this and I know that you've shared this on social and on your channels before as well. But can you share a little bit with us about how you got started in stock trading and how you've turned this into full-time income?
Yes. So believe it or not, especially since it's a Dallas habitat, I think you guys will understand the job that I had before I started trading full time is I was an assistant principal in Pleasant Grove. I actually worked for a charter school and was assistant principal there. But to tell you the truth, I was not enjoying it. Like it was super stressful. I was just, I like say crying in the bathroom, but the same felt like every day I was crying. And like we know, like Blaine, you know too, like working in nonprofits and ministry. I worked in nonprofits and ministry for 10 years. And because we're in Dallas too, I can even say like I went to Dallas Theological Seminary. I thought that I was going to be a youth pastor or a young adult pastor. I did that, but that's really hard work. And oftentimes you don't get paid enough. So I think at the time that I was assistant principal, I had just gotten to my last straw. I was like, you know what, God, like this life can't be like this. I've got to have an exit strategy. So I started trading, and you might wonder, like, well, where did trading come from? I actually went to MIT for undergrad and I interned at Morgan Stanley on Wall Street. So I had known about trading and I had been trading as a hobby while I was in education and nonprofits. So it had always been something that was around, but I just didn't think that it was a full time thing. But after taking some classes for myself, I realized, you know what? All I need is $300 a day to replace my assistant principal salary. If I could just make $300. So I started like practicing every day and trading every day and started working myself up. At first, it was okay, at least I'm just not negative today. Let's be happy about that. Now I got $100. Okay, this is good. This is good. And then I started consistently making $300 a day. And you might say, well, how long did that take? Honestly, it doesn't take long to learn, but it took me about a year to get consistent. By the end of that school year, I was able to tell my boss, like, bye, peace out, I'm gone. And my dream was to travel around the world. I wanted to see all the hidden gems of the world. So I left in October of 2017 and started traveling everywhere. So I was in South Korea, in Thailand, in Vietnam. And while I was gone, people started asking me to teach them how to trade.
Mm.
And at first I was like, no, I just left the school. I'm not doing this. I'm not teaching anybody else. But slowly, like I did my first class in Thailand, and then I did another class in Vietnam. And little like they loved it, but I also really enjoyed it. And then I came home. I finished up my last semester at DTS at Dallas Theological Seminary, and I asked them, "Can I borrow a classroom?" And they were like, "Are you going to be the teacher?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to be the teacher." And 71 people came to my workshop on intro to the stock market. And I was like, "Oh gosh, I didn't think anybody was going to come." All right, God, fine, I hear you. But from there, from Instagram is crazy. Like the internet is an amazing tool. So other friends started seeing, like, oh man, you did a class, I want to learn too. And they were in different places like Atlanta and California. So I said, you know what? I have an online course. I'll do it online. And it just started to grow. In 2017, we had 30 students, and I was so excited. And now, 2021, we have 6,000 students. And it's just been, yeah, it's just been amazing. So That's how I started Trade and Travel.
Inspiring story. I mean, I hope, and send us your chat, for if you're attendee out there watching and hearing Teri's story, send us your notes in the chat. I see some claps, right? But
Oh,
that
thanks.
is definitely something to be excited about. I mean, you were able to take your vision for what your life could be and make that into a reality through, this financial strategy that you've been able to master. And now, just you paying it forward, Teri, is so amazing. And so that's why we're excited to have you here today. And I know our attendees are eager. We saw some questions coming in the Q&A about like, how do I get started? So here's my question for you. If you're a beginner, if you are just starting out in trading, what's the best way to get started? So kind of some sub questions here, I think that we can touch on. Like, I think a lot of times as new investors, we think the stock market itself is like very risky. We're afraid we're going to lose money. So, what's the best strategy for kind of dipping our toes in? And then kind of another sub question, I think, is there's this misunderstanding, I think, with a lot of people that you have to make a lot of money to participate in the stock market. So can we talk a little bit about those 2 points?
Yes. So, okay. So there was a couple things there. Let me first just like knock out the fear of you have to have a lot of money and you have to make a lot of money. So the first thing is no, actually to get started with investing, like you can open an account with $500. And then I always tell my students, I want you to start practicing first in a simulator with fake money. So you really don't have to have a lot when you get started. And the simulator and practicing with fake money will take some of that fear away too, and you can start becoming a better trader. So let's take that off the plate. Like we have ways to like make sure that you feel comfortable as you're getting started. So take that off. Okay. Then let me come over to the how to get started question. So I actually have a webinar on Thursday that's like how to get started in the stock market, and I'll give you guys a little preview. I know we don't have time for the whole thing, but it's like literally 3 steps that I would say to get started. And let me preface, like step 0 before the 3 is it's really good to take a class. Like getting educated is going to really help you. Trading is one of those things where everybody feels like they could just do it because it's so easy to enter. Like it's so easy to open an account and people just feel like, oh, I'll just figure it out. But the best way to start is to get some education first. So had to put that out there. Shameless plug if you need education, trade and travel. But first step 0 is like get educated. But then there's these 3 steps even before you start active trading like me. So before the $1,000 in a day, I would say the first step is open a brokerage account. And like, here's a little story to go behind that. When I was a senior in high school, Google had their IPO. And they like IPO's initial public offering. That means they first became like they first offered shares to the public, and it was $83 a share. And now it Google's over 2,000. So just imagine me in high school, it was $83. So I remember going to my grandmother and I'm like, Granny, we got to invest in this stock, and we didn't know what to do. Then I went to my school. I went to Bowie in Arlington. If you guys are like, if y'all are familiar, I'm like, this is a Dallas crowd, so I can say that.
Yes.
But in at Bowie, I went to all my teachers and none of them knew how to get started. So the first step that I wish I had then was just an account open. If you have a brokerage account that's open and funded with money, when an opportunity comes, you'll be able to take it. So that's step 1. I told you guys I use one called TradeStation, and a lot of my students use that. But another one you can maybe consider is Interactive Brokers or TD Ameritrade. I hear a lot of people like that too. I'm suggesting some online brokers that are a little bit more advanced, just because I want this to be something you can grow into as you begin trading more often. Robinhood may not have all the things that you need. Even E-Trade may not have all the capabilities you need. So that's why I'm suggesting some of the more robust brokers. They do take a little bit more time to learn. That's why I said get the education, but they're like really good for like active investors. So that's step 1, open a brokerage account. Step 2 is you're going to pick a stock or index or ETF to invest in. What are those things? The index we talked about before, like that's the Dow Jones, which follows the top 30 companies, or the S&P 500. The best way to invest in those are something called an ETF. They just put a group of companies together, but you can invest in them just like a stock. So, disclaimer, this is for educational purposes only, but some really cool ticker symbols. The ticker symbol is just like what you would put in the computer to invest in it. There's one, write down DIA, that follows the Dow Jones. So that's an ETF that you can invest in to just have your money follow the top 30 companies. Or you could do the SPY, that's a ticker symbol. And somebody, if you don't mind, you'll know I'm a teacher, just go ahead and put these in the chat so that if somebody else doesn't see it, thank you. The SPY, that's an ETF that follows the S&P 500. Or if you wanted to do the NASDAQ, there's one called QQQ. And many people invest in that to follow the technology companies. So those are just some top line. Teri, I don't really know what to do yet. While I'm learning, I just want my money to be growing somehow. Like, you can invest in one of those. There's also some that invest in a sector, some ETFs that follow a sector. And write down this sector. No, yeah. I always get the words mixed up, but it's like sector, select, spider. No, select, spider, ETFs. Let me write it, because sometimes when I write it, I do it better. Select, and then they don't spell spider, spdr.com. And it might, so try that. And if that one doesn't work, try sectorspider.com. Julie, let me know if you're still here, if one of those is the better ones, but y'all can try that out. What those do is they actually follow a sector of the economy. So for example, the XLK, that one's really popular. It follows technology. Or the XLY, that follows discretionary, consumer discretionary. So like all the shops and things. Or you can have XLV, that follows healthcare. So maybe you said, you know what, during this coronavirus, many people are going to need healthcare. I want to follow the healthcare companies. The XLV follows healthcare. So that's a way too that you can invest in a ETF, which is like a sector or a group of companies. I think that's a good place to start. And then, like I said, then you can get into trade and travel, where we're like really selecting specific stocks, and we're trading in and out of them and making higher returns. But just by following the market, you can make about an 8 to 10% return. And then my students, we're trying to make like a 20% return a month. So that's when you can go like, okay, Teri, I got this down. I opened the account. I invested in one of the companies. And that's actually step 3. And then I'll stop talking because I'm talking a lot. But
hey, we're all taking notes, Teri.
Oh, good. Oh, and thank you, Julie. So Julie said sectorspider.com. So that's the one. Sometimes I mix it up with select and sector.
Yeah.
But sectorspider.com is where you'll find those ETFs that follow a sector of the economy. So once you've opened the account, you've figured out which one of those ETFs you want, or index funds you want to invest in, then you actually have to place the trade. And in the computer, it'll actually let you put in the ticker symbol of the company. So Teri, what's a ticker symbol? Well, once you decide that you want to invest in a company, that company has a 3 to 4 letter, they call it ticker symbol, but it's just 3 or 4 letters that identify that company in the stock world. So you'll put those letters in. So let's say we wanted to do technology, and we said we want to do the XLK. On the platform, I'd put in XLK, and then it would bring up how much that stock cost. And so if it's going for, let's say, $130 per share, it'll show me $130. And then what you'll do is you'll put into the blank how much you want to pay. Now, here's a little secret. When you get into trade and travel, we never pay full price. We always look for times where it comes down a little bit, you get a little clearance sale, but you'll learn that as you go. But the key is keeping it simple. You'll put in the price and then you'll press buy. It's like literally that simple. You put in the price. Sometimes it'll say what type of order. And that goes into a little bit more detail too. But if it does say that and you're like looking at it now, you're like, Terry, I'm following along, press limit order. A limit order, it lets you put in your own price instead of the computer giving you a price. And you usually get a better price on your stock if you put it in yourself. So order type limit, and you'll put in the price and press buy. And then when you're ready, what'll happen is that price hopefully will start going up in value. You bought it at $130. It'll go up to, let's just say $135. You're like, oh my God, I just made $5. Oh my God. You're going to be really excited at this point. Yes. And then you're going to go back into that same order form. This time you'll press sell, put in the 135 and press sell. And like literally, like now you are an active investor. You just traded your first stock. So it's not as hard as people make it seem. Mm-hmm.
3 steps, y'all. 3 steps. We all can do this. And like Teri said, there's so many amazing resources online these days that bring these options right to our fingertips. But I think a key thing that Teri touched on that I definitely want to emphasize is make sure that, if you're dipping in this for the first time, get that education. Get that education. Just like anything else, this is what this whole week is about. The whole month, all of us that do this full time that we're celebrating, April is Financial Literacy Month. Understand what you're doing before you really dip your toes into this. Teri,
Yeah.
ask you this question, and I saw a question come through in the Q&A on this subject as well. If we're a first-time investor and we hear this and we're feeling excited, but we're a little nervous, I mean, how much money at minimum should we be expecting to invest in stock trading?
If you're an active investor, this is where that active versus long term comes in. If you're an active investor, I honestly think you need about $1,000 to $2,000 to start. And what'll happen is when you get your account to $2,000, then the bank will also give you a little extra buying power. You don't necessarily have to use it, but it's there. And that'll help you, like, hey, if I want shares of this and I only can afford nine, then the bank will let you actually get the 10 and then you can sell it. So I do think 2,000 is a good place for active investing. And then one of the goals that I give my students is we try to average 1% return on our cash amount. Because that's often a question I get too of like, well, how much should I expect to get back? If you're an active investor, then our goal is, okay, if I have $2,000 on this trade, I'm going to try to make $20. And then it sounds small, 1% return sounds small, but it starts adding up. Now, what if I do that 3 times a week? Well, I just made $60. That's 3% return versus the 6 to 10% return over a year when I'm longer term investing, right? So if you're an active investor, you're trying to make small percentage gains, but on a more regular basis. Does that make sense? Oh, Shauna just said, what's the link to your class? Investwithteri.com. And it's Teri. Here, I'll put it in the chat. Investwithteri.com. Yeah, that's to my course. And I will say one other thing. Earlier, you asked me about the risk. How do we know, like, keep it from being a gamble? Well, if you remember when I was walking through the steps and walking through the how to place the trade, and I talked about order types, there's also an order type called a stop loss. And that actually will protect you if the stock starts going against you or going in the wrong direction. So say we got that stock at 130, we could put in a stop loss at 125. And that says if the stock comes down to 125, get me out of the trade. And what that does is it protects you from losing more than you're willing to lose. And so, what I talk to my students about is before you even get into a trade, we have to have our risk tolerance in place. Like, how much are you willing to lose? We can't just go in assuming that it'll work. We have to plan for if it doesn't. So, if I don't want to lose more than $200, then I'm going to place that stop loss so that I'm not losing more than $200. And another thing that we're doing is we're going to look at charts to figure out when's the best time to get into this stock. So that also will help with your reward to risk. If you're getting in at better times, then you're more likely to be successful and have a higher reward. So we do those kind of calculations beforehand.
That's awesome. That's that safety net, y'all, right? So then you've got something to fall back on and you're not too concerned about, well, oh my gosh, what if I lose it all?
Yes.
So just great advice, great tips for beginners. All right, we've got some specific questions coming in for you, Teri.
Nice, let's go.
I know, and I know you probably live for this too.
I do. It's really fun. I love just introducing people to active investing because it's not talked about a lot.
Right.
But when we think about like Goldman Sachs and all the banks that are reporting, like they're actually reporting right now, they made billions of dollars last year because they were actively investing. But then the community at large is like, it's we can't do it. It's like, no, you can. It's really a great thing. So
And through all of your grassroots, resources and support, that's what I love about this. Anyone can do it. Anybody on this call today can take that first step and just learn and just dip into it. Do a simulator, like Teri said. Start
mhm.
with her 3 steps. Check out her resources online. I mean, really make an investment in yourself. This is what it's about, investing in our future. Um, so okay, let's see. I want to get to some of these specific questions. And I know Daphne asked a question for your thoughts, Teri, on purchasing coin today.
Yeah.
Today or wait?
So let me first give everybody on the call a couple prefaces about this question. So one, Coinbase, that is a place where you can trade crypto, is going public today. So they have their IPO. So in order to answer that question, we first got to talk about, is it good to invest in IPOs? And my answer is no. I don't think it's good to invest in IPOs, especially not the first day. If you think about most companies, even like Airbnb did like a bit of a pop when it went public recently, but usually when a company first goes public, that first day it jumps up originally, but then it pops down, and many of the investors that invest the first day lose money. So what I would suggest is wait for the stock price to fall in the next few days or even the next few weeks, and then invest in the company. You'll probably get a lot better price. So that's just my feeling in general with all IPOs. Wait until you have more data. Another thing is I'm a technical analysis trader, so I want to be able to read a chart to see when to get into the stock. And on the first day, it doesn't have any data. So you need to wait a little bit. And then just if there's any thoughts on just crypto coins in general. So I will say for a long time, I did not believe in crypto. I didn't want to invest in any coins, but lately I have been investing in Bitcoin. I think a couple thoughts for you there is if you're going to do it, invest in the best ones. I know a lot of people that are trying to invest in like, oh, my friend told me about this random obscure one that's like 2 cents. I don't I don't invest in penny stocks, and so I also don't invest in like penny crypto coins. If you're going to invest in anything, try to get the best in, they call it the best in breed. So the best thing in that sector. So if you're doing crypto, like I'm doing like Bitcoin and Ethereum. If you're doing airlines, we're doing Southwest, and just pick the best one in that sector, and that'll help your investing. Okay.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. We just had, and I know we're a couple minutes over. We have 2 more questions that came in for anyone who can stick with us for just a moment longer. You're welcome to. The first question, and I think this is a great question, is what is the impact on taxes?
Great question. So it's actually the same as if you were to get a bonus at your job or get a side hustle. You still are going to pay taxes, but they just add the income to your overall income and then you pay whatever tax bracket. So it's not like some extra special tax. It's no, just your normal tax rate for your income.
That's
Mhm.
great to know. So debunking myths that are out there about like, oh my gosh, how much is, how much am I going to have to
Right.
pay if I want to do this actively?
Right.
Um, Alicia wants to know, Teri, what's the difference between Forex and the type of trading that you do?
Great question. So, Forex is an asset class, just like stocks and options. So, there's three main asset classes, or really four, that people talk about. One is stocks that follows companies like businesses. Then you have Forex, which is currencies. So, it's like the difference between the peso and the US dollar, or the Aussie dollar and the US dollar. So, they're trading those exchange rates. And then you have futures, which is commodities like soybean, corn, wheat, that kind of thing. And then options, you hear about that a lot too, but that's just like a derivative of stocks. It's 100 shares of a stock at a time, but it's still equities. So those are the four things I mainly focus on: stocks and options. That's my sweet spot, what I'm good at. Um, yeah. And then another thing too is oftentimes when someone says Forex, there's some companies that don't actually teach people how to trade. They just try to like recruit folks. And that's not what I do. Like I'm a teacher. So in my online course, we're actually teaching you how do you pick good companies, how do you protect your risk, how do you read charts, how do you like have a trading plan, that kind of thing.
That's so amazing because y'all, if we're not learning this from Teri, who are we learning this from? You
Right?
know, I mean, most of us are not learning this from parents. We're certainly not learning it in school, and unless we had an awesome experience like Teri did, interning at college, probably didn't learn this hands on. So
Exactly.
this is gold. I hope everyone's taking notes. We are recording this. So you can go back and watch if you feel like you need to. And our last question that has come in, Teri, is do you think there's value in stock purchases versus options? Or should your portfolio include both? And if so, do you suggest an approximate ratio?
Honestly, the difference between stocks and options for me is how fast the company is moving. If the company is moving really fast, then an options contract might be good because you know that you can make your money quickly. But if you're not sure that it's moving fast, stocks is a good option. And this it's a bit more advanced question, but just for the newbies in there, so you know like why I say that. When you're investing in a stock, you can, as long as you keep it in your portfolio, then you have access to those shares. But with an option, there's a time value and an expiration date. So if your stock doesn't move in the time that you thought it was, then you might lose your money. And so that's why I'm saying if you don't know how fast it'll go, choose stocks. If it's moving pretty fast, then options would be good. So I use both in my trading. Mhm.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Diversity always a good thing when it comes to our investments, just on the whole.
Exactly.
Well, that concludes all of our questions that we've gotten so far. I know people have a million questions buzzing in their head, as I'm sure, many of us do that are listening in today as well. Teri, we want to thank you for imparting your amazing knowledge today, for sharing some of your time and certainly sharing your expertise. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And yeah, I'm doing lots of free workshops on like how to get started or how to make $1,000 a day. So if you go to itradeandtravel.com, there's a free webinar there. So that might answer a lot of the questions that didn't get answered today. And then just check me out on Instagram or YouTube too, Trade and Travel or Teri Ijeoma.
Yes. Follow Teri. I'm here to promote that. I follow Teri. She has nuggets every single day. You have to follow her. She's amazing. Teri, we thank you. And we need to give a shout out to our next keynote speaker in today's keynote series, who is a friend of ours and a friend of Teri's, and that is Julie Alma Taveras. Julie's with us.
Yay!
Hey, Julie. We're so excited to have Julie tonight. She's going to be on at 6 p.m. tonight. She'll be live with us 6 to 6:30. Make sure that you register. We just dropped the link in, the direct registration link. So make sure that you sign up for Julie's class. We're going to talk about investing for beginners. And so we're going to dig into parts of this topic and some new topics tonight as well. So definitely bring all of your questions, anything we didn't get to today. Julie's going to be here and she's certainly an expert and we'll be ready to answer them all. Teri, I hope that this is our first engagement, but not our last. This has been
Yeah.
such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.